Welcome to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm your host, Danny Murphy, and today I'll be talking with Dick Erickson, the author of the book, Profit Sharing in the Real World, which is available, by the way, on Amazon.com. Dick is going to talk to us about the four pillars of business success, which we've talked about three of them in detail. We're going to talk about those briefly, and then we're going to talk about how they all contribute to the profitability and ultimately the profit sharing that can take place in a successful business. Dick, it's good to see you again as always.
Thank you, Danny. It's good to be here.
So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the four pillars of a successful business. The first one, in your estimation, being dignity and respect for others.
Yes. I think it's so important, and I can see the reason I feel it's the one to start from or to build from is it takes people. It takes people, but it isn't just the employees. I was asked that question one time at a speaking engagement: who's more important, the customer or the employee? And my comment, without thinking hard about it, I said it's not a fair question because they're all important. But if the employee is not involved and feeling good about themselves, and one of the ways that happens is to be treated with dignity, treated with respect.
So important.
Yeah.
And the same for the customers. You know, you had tire stores. You never wanted a manager who would make the customer feel stupid or ignorant.
No.
I mean, a lot of people don't know what's going on with their car. The women can feel that especially, but guys as well.
Amen.
Some guys know nothing about what's going on under the hood.
That's right. And to get their trust, it was how they were treated. And that was such a big important because I was in a non-trusting industry of automotive repair. If you think about it, everyone's got some horror stories. But the point being is everybody is important in the circle. Employees, the customer has got to feel comfortable. He's got to, how do you get that? It's how he's treated. Sometimes just start with a smile, but anyhow, it's with dignity. And then you go to your support people out there, the vendors, and then the professionals, the attorneys, the accountants, folks like that are there to work with you, even though they might work for you, but to treat them with dignity.
That's so important. And the dignity, when you give it to the employees, they produce. They are motivated and they do their jobs. When you give it to customers, they come back, don't they?
Amen. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for long-term relationships. And the only way that happens is that people feel good about coming to your place of business.
And the next point, the next pillar of business success is solidarity. What company doesn't like the idea of solidarity? Everybody being on the same team.
Yes, and that's not real easy to bring about sometimes. And so the real start of solidarity in probably most of the pillars is the why of that. Why is that such an important? And again, is now you're trying to get the whole group together, but they got to have a mission, and the why becomes the mission. And so when this happens and everyone's together, that energy level, that's what you're looking for. You're looking that everybody's pulling together, and that has to be very defined. That we're all on the same page, folks. Here's what we're going to do every day. We got to make the customer happy. How do we do that? And we get into, because every business has got certain specialties. We want to make sure that we service their needs, not their wants. Some wants is very important, but their needs from a professional deal.
Now, before we started today, we talked a little bit about music and solidarity. That's everybody in the orchestra doing their job.
That's right. And that's what you see. And sometimes all of a sudden they say, well, I don't really hear the trombone. Well, you're not supposed to hear it. Everyone's in there together. I picked that out from this thought. And so when you're really working together, it all comes together. It's a unit. It isn't a single, I heard certain horns or I heard certain violin. I don't know what I heard, but it was so beautiful. It was all of them working together.
So when everybody's working together, the product, whether it be service or a product such as tires, that just goes more smoothly and more profitably.
Yes. And we want that to happen, but they have to really, we all have to understand what it is the why we're here. And that has to be so explained, and it has to be down. It's got to be simple, the thought process. And this is what we do every day, hour by hour, minute by minute, whatever. We're there to please the customers, but we got to know and be good at what we're doing in order to turn out work that's appreciated.
Now, the next point that you made, the third pillar of success in business, was subsidiarity. Some may pronounce it, I should have looked this up, subsidiarity, but we'll just stick with your pronunciation for today, subsidiarity. And it's a word that may not be familiar to many people. The definition, I've got it down here. Well, I don't have it right in front of me, but it has to do with people doing things at the level they're capable of doing. What would you say about that, Dick?
Well, what I love about subsidiarity, and I was like you when I first got into this, and someone said, this is a pillar, and I was studying this, and I said, oh, yes. What happens when people come to work for you, a lot of times, they're green about this. There's something new and how you do it. And what you're trying to do, and one of the best ways to get people up to speed is to give them some responsibility. And so subsidiary is to push that given authority to people at the lowest level to get something accomplished. So they're making decisions. And really what you're doing is you're helping them grow as individuals as they take the authority to do the job, but they got to know the job, and then they make decisions at that level instead of running around trying to find the boss to micromanage this. We want it done at the level that is quickest and best place, and that is as far down the line as we can get it with people that are competent.
Now, I found the definition among my shuffling papers. Decisions should be made at the lowest level where competence exists. This promotes solving problems where the work is being done by people on the front lines, not by managers and leaders who work at different levels.
Amen. And that's about as simple as we can make it. And I found when that started happening, there was people that moved up into full management with us that I, at the beginning, had no idea. Look at an education level or whatever. You say, I don't know how far this person can go. And once they started getting some authority to make decisions, you took chances that they could through training. And then, boom, all of a sudden they start coming up the ladder and ended up being some of our store managers and did very well.
Now, I think there's a great example, and we'll just talk about one that would happen in a tire store. Somebody just bought a set of tires. They come in and they say, something doesn't sound right. Something doesn't feel right. And the tire changer takes a look at it and sees, oh, that thing's wobbling. That tire is out of round.
Yes.
And what happens next?
Well, that's it. So he's out there. You've got the car up in the air. You've taken the tires off, and you're going through the tires. And all of a sudden, you find one that is out of round, using your expression, and that's what it is in many cases. And he right then, if he's given the authority, he gets that tire off the rim, gets another tire on there, and fixes that problem right there. That should have been found at the beginning, but somehow it didn't.
Happens.
Yeah, and that happens. So, but to take ownership and get it solved instead of running around, where's the boss? I got to get authority to take this tire off the rim. No, it sounds simple, but when you really got a line of movement here, you want everyone making these kind of decisions to keep things moving as fast as, because the customer doesn't want to, it's not the place they want to hang around with forever. They want to get in and get out. How do we do this?
So a tire changer definitely has the expertise to know when a tire is out of round. There's no need for an assistant manager to come over and say, yep, that tire's out of round.
None. Exactly. So you don't have to stop the flow of work. Get it. It might stop it for a second, but boom, that can move on, and within minutes, boom, you're back on track. Yep.
So the tire changer's back to work. The customer's out the door. Everybody's happy.
That's right.
That's so powerful. So we've talked about the first three pillars of a successful business, those being dignity and respect for others, solidarity, and subsidiarity. Now we're going to talk about the ultimate topic of ours, which is profit sharing. You have to get to profitability first, don't you?
You do. first thing, you can't give profit back to the employee that you don't have. So you got to get the business put together properly. There's had to be a demand for it, all the issues of starting a business, and that starts happening. And as soon as you can, it's to say, we're going to share the excess profits. You got to take care of the ownership of the company. You have to have money to continue growing the company. Those are two big issues. And then the employees come into place here, and taking that excess and defining it to all of them. It's unbelievable when I saw this happening. My first half of my time in the business industry, I wasn't around that sort of thing. So key guys got some bonuses, and I might have been in one of those people. But the point was, all of a sudden, I went out and saw a company out in the West Coast that shared with everybody, and I couldn't believe what was going on. I had never seen such exciting movement and things happening, and customers getting in, getting out quickly, and smiling faces out there, including the customer, and everything was done. And and the more I got into it, so what's the difference here? A primary difference was they shared the excess profits with all the employees. So there was something on the line. Some people can say, well, this is all about money. No, it's not. It's part of it. Yeah, that's something. It's something the employees could take off, whether they give it to charity, how they've spent it is their choice. But it is defined, and they know if they do a good job, and you can't believe how they start policing each other. So they don't need a boss telling them something. They see an employee, having a bad day, they can take that issue on pretty quickly. To get with them, either they fill in or they kind of move that cut. Things can happen with people that are having a bad day, and something slips through. Everyone knows the whole program because they are trying to do a better job, and they know if they do, they get a piece of it. And that is so, and that's a subject in itself. But it was the biggest issue that I saw all in my career is what profit sharing did for the team. It was unbelievable, but it had to include all of them. So many have a layer they give it to, and they leave probably the more important people out because they're out on the line, and they're the folks on an hourly wage or something instead of a salary. That's where the energy can be brought to another level. And when that happens, company goes to another level.
Now, you use the term excess profit. Would you say, for you, that equated to net profit? Am I right?
Well, it comes from net profit. You got net profit and say, okay, what are we going to do with the net profit? Well, we're going to bonus some people, and we're going to do this. And what we do, we're going to hang on to some for growth. And like I said, the ownership, whoever it is entitled to getting a return on their investment. And then it says, okay, so the word excess might not explain, but it's the money that's left over after those issues are taken care of.
After everything's been paid for.
That's right.
Including a decent salary for the CEO.
Yes.
That's what you've got left is net profit annually. Now, you also mentioned another thing which was interesting. You mentioned the importance of the frontline people. And we talked about that in the first point, dignity and respect. And when they feel like they're being treated with dignity and respect, it's very motivating.
It is unbelievable. And a lot of them, up to certain times of their life, haven't really had that. They've kind of been they came up in the blue collar industry, and which the business was, it was a, tire business is blue collar. It is out there changing tires. You're going to get your hands dirty and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, even though your hands are dirty, you're treated with respect. You talk to as a human being. And when you're reprimanded, you get talked to in a proper way. You don't do it over the phone. You go and meet your people. And there's times we need to be readjusted as we talk to our employees, how we're going to get them to get something changed. But there's a way to do that. There's a way to talk to them. Be respectful. They're human. And if you can't, they probably got the wrong people in the company. I mean, that's not the end of the world. Not everyone's meant to be a terror man.
Well, I've been talking with Dick Erickson about the four pillars of success in business. The first one being dignity and respect for others. The second one being solidarity, everybody being on the same page, so to speak. The third one being subsidiarity, the idea that people can make decisions at their appropriate level. And fourth, how it all contributes to profitability in a business and ultimately profit sharing. Dick, I want to thank you for being with me again.
It's always a pleasure, Danny. It's my favorite subject.
I know. Well, this has been Danny Murphy on Profit Sharing in the Real World with Dick Erickson. Dick Erickson's book, Profit Sharing in the Real World, is available at Amazon.com. If you have a question for Dick Erickson that you'd like to have addressed on a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. My email address is danny@successstory.biz. Danny@successstory.biz. Thank you for listening.